I was cut off by my family over a lie. 5 years later, I was the only one who could save them. That's how it all began. My name is Emily Johnson. I'm 32 years old, and for 5 long years, I was cast aside by the people I loved most, my parents and my sister. The lie that started everything? Well, that's something I'll never forget. It was a simple misunderstanding, or so I thought at the time. But the way it spiraled, the way they all turned their backs on me, changed everything. My sister, Sarah, had always been the golden child in our family. She could do no wrong. So when she came up with a story about me, something about me taking advantage of a family trust fund for personal gain, it wasn't hard for our parents to believe. The fact that Sarah, my own sister, would lie like that left me in shock. I didn't understand why they believed her. I'd never done anything to deserve this kind of treatment. My parents, who had always been my rock, suddenly became strangers. They cut off all communication. No phone calls. No visits. They wouldn't even return my texts. For 5 years, I lived in a kind of limbo, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. I kept asking myself over and over, was I really that bad? Was I truly capable of the things Sarah had accused me of? Every day felt like I was walking through a fog, just trying to make sense of a world that had turned upside down. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I had always been the daughter who would show up, the one who would do anything for her family. But now, I was the one left in the dark. 5 years later, everything changed. I was no longer the person on the outside looking in. Now, I was the one with the power to change everything. When Sarah found herself in a situation that threatened to destroy everything she had built, it was me, only me, who could help her. And that's exactly what I did. But saving her wasn't easy. It meant confronting the people who had turned their backs on me. It meant facing the family that had once been everything to me. And in the end, it meant making a choice that would change everything forever. The first year after they cut me off was the hardest. I remember sitting in my small apartment, staring at the blank walls, feeling the emptiness that had once been filled with family gatherings, laughter, and shared memories. It felt like the whole world had moved on without me. I tried to keep myself busy, picking up extra shifts at work, trying to fill the void in my heart with anything that would keep my mind off the pain. But no matter how hard I tried, it was impossible to escape the feeling that something was missing, someone was missing. My parents, the people I thought would always have my back, wouldn't even acknowledge my existence anymore. It was as if I had never been a part of their lives. And Sarah, my own sister, had become the perfect stranger. The worst part was, I couldn't understand why they believed the lies. I knew Sarah had always been the golden child, but we had always been close. We shared everything growing up, from secrets to dreams. But one small lie had destroyed everything. And the worst part? I never even got the chance to defend myself. There was no conversation, no explanation. Just silence. Endless silence. I tried reaching out, sending texts, leaving voicemails, even writing letters, but nothing ever came back. It was as if I had never existed in their lives. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. The pain didn't go away, but I learned to live with it. I focused on my work, on building a life for myself without them. But deep down, I still wondered what had happened. What could I have done differently? What could I have said to change their minds? These thoughts haunted me every day, but I never let anyone see it. I learned to wear a mask, a smile that covered the ache inside. But when Sarah called me that day, everything changed. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't even recognize the number at first, but I picked up anyway. Her voice on the other end was shaky, desperate. "Emily, I need your help," she said. And for the first time in 5 years, I heard the familiar tremble of my sister's voice, the voice I used to know so well. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to ignore the call, to hang up and walk away, but I couldn't. I still cared, and deep down, I knew she needed me. Despite everything that had happened, I was still the only one who could help her. The next few days were a blur. I didn't know what to think when Sarah's voice rang in my ears. Part of me was angry, furious even, at how easily she had destroyed everything. But then, the other part of me, the part that was still a sister, no matter what, started to wonder if I could really walk away. I hadn't spoken to her in 5 years, and yet, here she was, reaching out to me like nothing had happened. My hands shook as I held the phone to my ear. "What happened, Sarah? What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her breath was shaky as she tried to explain. "I made a mistake, Emily. A huge one. I lied, and now things are falling apart. I don't know who else to turn to." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. It wasn't the first time she'd made a mistake. It wasn't the first time she'd let me down. But it was the first time she had called me for help. And as much as I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she had hurt me, I knew I couldn't turn my back on her. Not now. Not when she needed me the most. "What's going on?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. She sighed, and for a moment, I thought she was going to back out, but then she spoke again, her voice barely audible. "I've made some bad choices. And now I'm in a situation I can't get out of. It's too big, Emily. I don't know where to go. I need your help." My heart dropped. I could hear the fear in her voice, and for a moment, I felt the weight of everything: our broken family, the lies, the distance between us. "Okay," I said, before I could think about it too much. "I'll help. But you need to tell me everything." There was a pause before she spoke again, her voice filled with relief. "Thank you, Emily. I swear I never meant for any of this to happen. I never thought it would come to this. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew. One thing for sure, this wasn't just about saving Sarah anymore. It was about fixing everything that had been broken. About finally getting the chance to rebuild what was left of our family. And I wasn't going to let anything stop me." As I hung up the phone, I sat there for a moment, absorbing what had just happened. Sarah had called, and I had agreed to help her. But now that the words were out in the air, a sense of dread began to settle in. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I knew one thing: I had to help her. I had to help the sister I once loved, even if she had shattered everything in our family. The following days were a whirlwind. I started making arrangements, reaching out to old connections, trying to find out what exactly had gone wrong in Sarah's life. It wasn't easy. She didn't tell me everything right away. I could tell she was scared, and I couldn't blame her. The trust had been broken. I knew that, and she knew it too. But something about her desperation kept me going. It was hard to look past the years of hurt, but as I talked to her, piece by piece, the story started to unfold. Sarah had gotten involved in something that spiraled out of control. A bad investment, some shady people, and a lot of money that wasn't hers to borrow. I tried to remain calm, but inside, I was raging. This was the same girl who used to share everything with me, who once promised to never lie to me, who had now put herself in a situation that could tear what was left of our family apart. But no matter how angry I was, I knew one thing: I couldn't just walk away. She needed me. And if I was going to help her, I had to act fast. I drove to meet her at a small cafe in the city, the one we used to go to when we were teenagers. It felt strange to be back there, knowing how much had changed between us. But as I sat across from Sarah, I saw the same person I had once cared for. Her eyes were tired, and she looked older than her years, worn down by the mistakes she had made. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know how I got here." I could see the tears in her eyes, and for a moment, I almost lost myself. But then I remembered everything that had happened. The years of silence, the hurt, the betrayal. And I reminded myself that if I was going to help her, I couldn't let emotions cloud my judgment. "We'll fix this," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was heavy. "But you have to trust me, Sarah. We're in this together now." The days that followed were a blur of planning, meetings, and trying to gather information. I had to be careful. Sarah had put herself in a dangerous position, and the more I learned, the more I realized how deep the mess went. She had borrowed money from the wrong people who didn't take kindly to missed payments. I knew we couldn't do this alone. I had to reach out to people from my past, people who could help, but I couldn't tell them everything. Not yet. Every time I talked to Sarah, she seemed more and more fragile, as though the weight of the world was on her shoulders. She kept apologizing, telling me she didn't mean for it to get this far, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about the money. It never was. This was about the lies, the choices she had made without thinking about the consequences. How did it get this bad? I asked her one night after she had been quiet for too long. She wiped her eyes and looked away. I thought I could fix it, she said softly. I thought I could keep it all under control. But I couldn't. Her voice was filled with regret, and I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't just sorry for what she had done to herself. She was sorry for what she had done to me, to our family. I wasn't sure how I felt. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much she had destroyed, but that wouldn't solve anything. We'll fix this, I said again, trying to keep my voice calm. But you need to understand something, Sarah. You can't just come to me when things are falling apart. This isn't the first time you've put us all in a position where we're forced to pick up the pieces. She nodded, her face pale, but she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I could see that she knew. She had hurt me, and she knew she had. But now wasn't the time for blame. Now was the time to fix what was broken. And as much as it pained me to admit it, I couldn't do this without her. We were going to get through this together, or not at all. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that helping Sarah wasn't just about rescuing her. It was about saving myself. It was about reclaiming the part of me that had been lost in all this. For 5 years, I had been invisible to my own family. But now, as I sat across from Sarah, I realized that maybe this was my chance to make things right, not just for her, but for me too. The days turned into weeks as Sarah and I worked together, slowly trying to piece together the mess she had made. Each conversation, each meeting with people who could help, felt like walking through a minefield. But as the days passed, something shifted in me. I wasn't just helping Sarah anymore. I was taking control of my own life again. The more I worked on fixing things, the more I realized that I had been holding on to the hurt for so long. I had been carrying the weight of my family's actions, the silence, the rejection, and the lies. But now I was starting to let go. Helping Sarah wasn't just about saving her. It was about saving myself. I could feel the tension between us slowly starting to ease. She stopped apologizing so much and began to take responsibility for what she had done. There were still moments of doubt, but there was also a flicker of hope. I had seen this side of Sarah before, the one who was capable of change, of learning from her mistakes. And I could see it again. But the truth was, fixing this wouldn't be easy. It wasn't just about cleaning up Sarah's mess. It was about rebuilding trust with my parents, a trust that had been shattered beyond repair. I had no idea how that would happen, but I knew I couldn't let it stop me. As I sat in the quiet of my apartment one night, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Sarah. It was my mother. My heart skipped a beat. It had been so long since I had heard from her. I almost didn't want to answer, but something in me pushed me to. Emily, her voice was soft, tentative. Mom? I said, my voice trembling. There was a long pause, and for a moment, I wasn't sure if she was going to say anything. But then she spoke again. I've been thinking about everything. About you, about Sarah, about what happened. And I'm sorry. I was wrong to shut you out. The words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much I had been waiting for this moment until I heard them. I didn't know what to say at first. Part of me wanted to lash out, to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much I had suffered because of her decision. But I stayed quiet, letting the silence hang in the air. I don't expect you to forgive me, my mother continued. But I want to try, Emily. I want to try and fix things. I miss you. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of her words sink in. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure, it wasn't going to be easy. But we were going to try. We were going to rebuild. Together. As the days passed, the weight of the phone call with my mother settled in. I wasn't sure how to feel. On one hand, I was relieved that she had finally reached out, that there was a crack in the wall she had built around herself. But on the other hand, I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive her. How could I just forget the years of silence, the hurt she had caused by choosing Sarah's lies over me? The pain was still fresh and the wounds hadn't fully healed. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that holding onto that anger wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping Sarah. It wasn't helping anyone. So, I took a deep breath and decided to try. I had been waiting for this moment for so long, and I couldn't let fear or pride stand in my way. The next few days were a blur of emotions: fear, uncertainty, but also hope. I was cautiously optimistic, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. Sarah and I continued working through her issues, and I began to see the person I had once known again. She was trying, really trying, to fix what she had broken. But even as things started to improve, there was still a tension in the air. Every time I spoke to my parents, I couldn't help but feel like I was walking on eggshells. Would they turn their backs on me again? Would they ever truly understand the pain they had caused? I wasn't sure. But one thing was becoming clear: I wasn't going to let this ruin me anymore. I had spent too many years feeling like I didn't matter, like I was the one who had been discarded. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was stronger now, and I was determined to rebuild my life. One evening, as I sat in my apartment, thinking about all that had happened, the phone rang again. This time, it was Sarah. "Emily, I don't know what to do," she said, her voice full of panic. "I messed up again. I thought I could fix it, but I've only made things worse." I felt a pang of sympathy for her. I knew this wasn't easy for her, but I also knew that she was finally starting to understand the consequences of her actions. "What happened?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's the people I borrowed money from," she said, her voice shaky. "They're threatening to take everything from me. I don't know how to get out of this." I took a deep breath, trying to push aside the anxiety that was creeping up inside me. I had to stay strong for her, for both of us. "We'll figure it out," I said. "We'll get through this, I promise." It was clear now. Sarah's problem wasn't just financial. It was personal, deeply personal. The weight of the situation settled heavily on me. I had thought I was just helping her with her money problems, but now I realized this was about more than just that. She had made decisions without thinking, and now, those decisions were threatening to destroy her. I felt a pang of guilt, wondering if I could have done something sooner, something that could have stopped this from happening. But there was no time for self-doubt now. I had made a promise, and I had to keep it. The next few days were a whirlwind of phone calls, paperwork, and trying to find any way out of the mess Sarah had gotten herself into. She was terrified, and I couldn't blame her. She had borrowed money from people who didn't care about her or her problems. They only cared about what she owed them. I knew I had to step in, but I wasn't sure how far I was willing to go to save her. We couldn't just talk our way out of this. There were real consequences, real threats looming over her. I took a deep breath, trying to think through the next steps. We needed help, real help. I started calling in favors from people I had known over the years, some old friends, some business connections, anyone who could point us in the right direction. But it wasn't easy. I knew I couldn't fix everything on my own. But Sarah? She didn't understand that. She didn't see the weight of the situation like I did. She was still in that place of denial, trying to hide from the truth, hoping it would all magically disappear. It was heartbreaking to watch, but I knew I couldn't pull her out of this if she didn't want to fight for herself too. Late one evening, as I was wrapping up another phone call with yet another lawyer who couldn't help us, Sarah showed up at my door. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. "I don't know what to do anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm losing everything." I stepped aside to let her in, my heart heavy with sympathy. But I knew we were beyond the point of feeling sorry for her. "We're going to get through this," I said, the words coming out more forcefully than I intended. "But you need to understand something, Sarah. This isn't just about the money. This is about you taking responsibility for your actions. It's time to stop running away." She nodded, her tears still falling, but there was something different in her eyes now. A flicker of realization, a glimpse of the person she could be if she chose to fight for it. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but at least she was ready to try. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. As the days passed, I could feel the tension in the air begin to shift. Sarah had made the decision to face the consequences of her actions, and that was something I hadn't seen from her in a long time. It wasn't going to be easy, but I could see the determination in her eyes. It was like a new version of her was starting to emerge, one that wasn't afraid to face the truth, no matter how ugly it was. We spent the next few days going over every detail of her situation. We met with lawyers, talked to financial advisors, and worked tirelessly to figure out the best way to get her out of the hole she had dug. It felt like the clock was ticking, and every moment that passed was one closer to losing everything. But Sarah kept pushing forward. I could tell it wasn't easy for her. She was ashamed, scared, and still dealing with the guilt of what she had done. But she didn't give up. One afternoon, we sat down to talk about our next steps. Sarah looked at me, her face serious but determined. "I'm not going to let them take everything," she said, her voice firm. "I'm going to fight for my future. For us." I nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. For the first time, I truly believed she was ready to take responsibility, not just for herself, but for everything she had done. We spent hours figuring out how we could work things out with the people she owed money to. The conversations were uncomfortable, filled with moments of tension, but we were making progress. It wasn't going to be easy, but at least we had a plan. As we worked through the details, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. Just a few weeks ago, I had been so angry, so hurt. I had felt like I would never be able to forgive Sarah for what she had done. But now, things were starting to change. Slowly, but surely, we were rebuilding. Our relationship wasn't fixed yet, but it was on its way. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. The past couldn't be erased, but we could start to build something new from the ashes of what had been lost. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, I had hope. I had hope that we could fix this. That we could heal, together. The weeks continued to slip by, and with each passing day, Sarah's situation seemed to improve, but the road was far from smooth. There were days when I felt like we were making real progress, and then there were moments when it all seemed to come crashing down again. But through it all, one thing remained certain. Sarah was trying. She was no longer the person I had feared, the person who had made reckless decisions without thinking of the consequences. I could see the change in her, not just in her actions, but in the way she carried herself. It wasn't easy to forget the hurt, but I was starting to forgive her. Slowly, I let go of the anger I had been holding onto for so long. One afternoon, we sat together in my apartment, going over the final steps of her plan. She was nervous, fidgeting with her hands, but I could see that she was determined. "I never thought I'd be in this position," she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "I never thought I would need help. But I'm glad you're here. I don't know how I would have made it through this without you." I watched her closely, studying her face, and for the first time in years, I saw the sister I once knew, the sister I had missed so much. "You don't have to thank me," I said softly, though my voice caught in my throat. "I'm doing this because it's what family does. We help each other, even when it feels like everything is falling apart." She smiled weakly, and I could see the relief in her eyes. "I don't deserve your help," she whispered. "You've been through so much because of me." "No," I said firmly. "You've made mistakes, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve a chance to fix them. We all make mistakes. But what matters is that you're here now, and we're going to work through this together." The next few weeks were filled with tense meetings, phone calls, and emails, but little by little, the pieces began to fall into place. We managed to find a solution to the debt Sarah had accumulated, and she began the long process of rebuilding her life. But even as we made progress, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It wasn't just about fixing Sarah's problems anymore, it was about mending the relationship we had lost. And for the first time in a long while, I believed we could. We weren't there yet, but we were getting closer. Slowly, but surely, we were healing. The months that followed were a steady progression of small victories. Sarah continued to work on rebuilding her life, and each step she took toward making things right felt like a victory, both for her and for me. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the old anger and hurt would resurface, but I was learning to let go of the past. I could feel the tension between us starting to dissipate, and with each passing day, we were inching closer to a version of our relationship that wasn't defined by betrayal. But just as things started to settle, I realized that there was still one thing left unresolved: my parents. The phone call with my mother had been a start, but there was still so much left unsaid between us. I hadn't fully processed everything that had happened, and I could feel the weight of that unfinished business pressing on me. I couldn't move forward without addressing it, and I knew it was time. One evening, after Sarah had left, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the phone in my hand. I hadn't spoken to my parents since that day, and even though I knew it wouldn't be easy, I knew I couldn't keep running from it. I dialed my mother's number, feeling my heart race as the phone rang. When she answered, her voice was tentative, unsure, as though she didn't know what to expect from me. "Emily," she said softly. "Mom," I replied, my voice tight. "We need to talk." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and I could tell that she was processing the weight of my words. "I know," she finally said, her voice cracking slightly. "I've been thinking about everything, and I don't know where to start. I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry for that." The words felt strange coming from her. I had waited so long to hear them, but hearing them now didn't feel like the relief I had imagined. It felt like a beginning, not an end. "I can't just forget everything, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You hurt me too much. But I'm willing to try to move forward. We both have to work at this." There was a pause before she spoke again. "I understand. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes." That was the moment I knew we were both ready to heal. It wouldn't be easy, but it was the first step toward rebuilding what had been broken. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that it was possible. It's been a few months since that conversation with my mom, and I can honestly say I'm still processing everything. It hasn't been easy. In fact, it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I can feel that something is changing. The anger that once consumed me is starting to fade, and in its place is something I didn't expect: peace. It's not the kind of peace that comes from forgetting what happened, but rather the kind that comes from accepting it. I've learned that I can't control other people's actions, but I can control how I respond. And I choose to respond with understanding. Sarah and I are still working through things. It's a slow process, but we're both committed to doing the hard work. I can't say things are perfect, but they're better. And that's enough for now. As for my parents, we've started having more regular conversations. They're not always easy, and there are still moments of tension, but I can tell they're trying. I'm trying too. We're all trying. And that's all I can ask for. I've learned that healing is not a straight line. There are ups and downs, moments of doubt, and moments of clarity. But through it all, I've learned one important thing. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to let go of the pain so that you can move forward. And moving forward is exactly what I'm doing. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control of my own life again. I'm not letting the past define me, and I'm not going to let anyone's mistakes stop me from living the life I deserve. The road ahead is still long, but I'm ready for it. And no matter what happens, I know I've done everything I can to heal and rebuild. I've learned that family is complicated, and sometimes you have to be willing to fight for it. But in the end, that's what makes it worth it: the willingness to try, to forgive, and to move forward together.